Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Michelle Holling-Brooks here from Unbridled Change, and you're listening to Soulful Practices podcast. More beings are awakening to the call of their hearts and soul to live a life that is in alignment with their true self, launching themselves on a spiritual wellness journey for evolving their systems from being subconsciously survival-led to being consciously soul-led with all aspects of their life, with like true holistic health and wellness and being. That's the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And yes, we want to be in alignment too within our careers, our financial life, social life, and family life, and in recreation too. While the spiritual journey of becoming aligned with our true self throughout all facets of our life is absolutely amazing, it can also feel overwhelming, lonely, isolated, and leaving us not really know where to go next on our path of awakening. This podcast is dedicated to helping you along that journey. I've been on my spiritual and wellness journey for over 25 years now and been doing this full-time as a soul companion, guide, and coach with my clients since I started Unbridled Change in 2008. And one of the main questions I'm always consistently asked is, hey, Michelle, what type of spiritual or healing and wellness practices will best support me on my journey of aligning to my true self? This podcast is the answer to that. Each week, I will share with you a new episode that brings you into the behind the scenes of my own personal soulful healing practices, and I invite you to join me in them. Each week, I'm going to be sharing with you a new soulful practice that is based off of what I like to call different pocket teachers. These are short mindful quotes, a spiritual key concept or healing concept, or a short text from a spiritual and growth teacher and wisdom teaching. And they are designed to help serve as a guide for us, a companion to us throughout that week, to help you courageously connect with the soul-led choices that will best help serve you in making the choices that will bring you into more balance so that you can live, love, and lead your authentic life. Truly going from having that desire, the intention to have a soul-led life, to embodying and unbridling your beautiful soul-led life. Again, I'm your host, Michelle Holling-Brooks, and I'm so glad you found us. Let's dive into the soulful practices for this week.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode 8 of Soulful Practices. And I have a new quote for you up this week to build a soulful practice around. I just want to apologize real quick for my voice. It's in the middle of hay season here when I'm recording this. And so I'm having a bit of a sinus allergic kind of a thing happening here. And so I apologize if I clear my throat or something. I'll try to mute the mic here and there as I can. But the pocket teacher is this beautiful, what I view as a mystic and visionary. She's a writer, she was a poet, she was a huge social rights activist and teacher, Maya Angelou. And Maya Angelou is quoted saying, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." So let me say that quote again. "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." And one of the things that I absolutely really resonate with is that Maya brings us into those soulful conversations all the time, right? She's bringing us right to the working edge where we feel enslaved, where we feel restricted and stuck in old patterns and old ways of being. And she wants us to liberate ourselves. She wants to liberate both ourselves personally, our mind, our heart, our soul. And because she knows that our soul will naturally connect, it will offer compassion and courage and connection. It will help us be able to rise above some of those different things that have happened to us and not reduce us, but allow us to not only remain beautifully whole, but to expand and to grow in that process. So to me, she was all about this visionary teacher that brought us into liberation, soul liberation, social liberation, love, liberating our ability to walk with that beautiful grace of love and compassion with ourselves and with others. So, with her quote this week, what we're really going to be, I'm going to be inviting you into exploring with "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it," as our pocket teacher, it brings us into the heart of really what's the why behind having a daily soulful practice of some kind, and why it's so important as a key concept and component for us to truly like courageously connect and live our authentic life. It's the imperfections and all, building off of episode 7, Leonard Cohen's, the forget the perfect offering, let's embrace that there's a crack in everything, and that's where the light comes in. So it is 100% true that our life experiences that we have throughout life, good and bad, they impact us. They can change us. They have the power to mold us, to shape us, and yes, also impact us with this, what I like to call when I'm talking with clients and they're just starting on a spiritual or healing journey. One of the things I invite them in to just embracing is that our life experiences do create this ocean almost of pain and past unhealed traumas and survivor fears and survival and trauma adaptations and self-doubt and worry and protective mechanisms that just separate us out piece by piece by piece, a little bit further and a little bit further away from this island that's called self, right? That accessing our inner courage, our wisdom, our knowing, believing in ourselves, having faith in ourselves, trusting ourselves to kind of say what we mean and mean what we say. So often when clients come to me, one of the core things that they're struggling with is they're like, Michelle, I know that this is what I want. I know that this is how I want to feel, if it's a physical goal or if it's emotional, mental, like this is how I want to think. This is how I want to engage my life. This is what my heart is calling to me. Or on a soul level, like I can feel this yearning bubbling up from my soul. But there's just like this chasm that no matter what I do, I just can't seem to hold my intentions or to get across this canyon, to take that leap of faith on myself. And I'm really starting to think that, maybe I'm broken. Maybe this healing journey thing isn't for me. That's almost always a common thread in some way, shape, form, or fashion when clients show up on my doorstep, right? And one of the first things I do is kind of validate that. Like, absolutely, there is a real ocean that cuts us off and divides us from who we want to be, how we want to be, and who we truly be, right? And in the middle is all of these personas, ideas, labels, masks, things that have reduced our capacity to believe and the brilliance of what our heart knows is true, what our soul knows is true. And yet, like what Maya is inviting us into exploring, is they don't actually have to stay that way. It doesn't have to reduce us. It doesn't have to cut us off. It doesn't have to break us of our sense of self, of our spirit, of our will, of our soul, of our courage, of our love and compassion and forgiveness that we could have for ourselves and for others. That doesn't necessarily have to stay that way. While it happens, for sure, it doesn't have to be that way. It's not set in stone. And that can begin to shift and change and therefore re-engage us, reestablish us, help us remember what my definition of healing is to remember our wholeness, to remember our worth and access of our light. So building that bridge through that ocean of, yes, what we've experienced can change us, and it can definitely cut us off from feeling that we have the momentum within our own system to reach our goals and get to where we want to go, right? Or even like blow our mind with, holy cow, my life is flying on, that magic carpet, and it feels incredibly grounded and earthy and real and also expansive at the same time. That's what we're ultimately going for with these soulful practices. And what I believe Maya is inviting us into with this beautiful quote of saying, and I refuse to let that reduce me, right? I refuse to allow that ocean to just be what it is. And I just have to time out this lifetime in that separation, in that dis-ease, right? Because our soul doesn't feel okay with it. Our heart doesn't feel okay with it. Our mind might like wave the white flag and say, sure, I am just appeasing that I can't ever get to the hopes or the dreams or the wishes or the desires. But even in that, our body is kind of nudging us forward, right? Like, hey, can we come here and can we find this? And so this practice is all about this week. It's about helping us explore and cultivating those pathways of what sometimes is called in the mental health field post-traumatic growth, right? That refusing to let it diminish us, to reduce us, to break us from our spirit, from our whole, from our desire to still dream and wish and think and engage and create and connect, compassionately connect with ourselves and with others, right? So, post traumatic growth is a concept that came into the mental health field in the mid 1990s. And when it was brought forward at the time, it was pretty radical because at the time, almost all the therapy models out there were just helping to basically label, identify, sort the fact that harm has happened and then help people you know, work with this idea that this is what your life is now, and so how can we help just minimize or alleviate some of the symptoms? How can we cover them up? How can we kind of put a band-aid on them, right? And so this came in and said, hey, in addition to helping people sort and categorize and understand and what has happened to them and how it's impacting them, what if we also bring in this beautiful phenomenon that there is also this growth that can come from those experiences, right? Like this idea that there can be a positive, right? This positive mental mindset, this positive opening of the heart and opening to things like compassion and forgiveness and grace and courage and empowerment. Like these things can come from some of those quote traumatic experiences too. And as a result of that struggle, that experience that being went through that was highly challenging and traumatizing, and even, yes, at moments cut them off, yes, at moments broke them away from remembering their beautiful light and their wholeness of who they are, there's a way back to it. There's a way not only to it, but to expand and grow and have access to more parts of themselves than they did before that experience. So that's what post traumatic growth started to kind of come in. And when I feel into this beautiful truth that Maya is inviting us to acknowledge, it is true. We deeply feel the imprints, like a thumbprint of the moments of our lives. Like I said, good, bad, the ugly, and the challenges and how that ripples out into our life, either temporarily and then it kind of calms down. It's not to complete tidal waves that seem to take out our life as we know it, right? Our self as we know it and view ourselves. However, there is also grace that is always present with us, even in those moments. This took me a long time to embrace this because originally, when I started on my healing and growth journey, it was truly from a mindset over matter, right? Like if I found the right mindset and the right thoughts, I could plug them in and I could mind over matter it, and I could say, this is my life despite the different traumas and experiences that I had had. It was very much this I'm going to survive and show you kind of a thing. And this idea of grace, this idea that was support was there for me, even in those rough moments, man, I didn't want to hear that. I was in a place that I was like, anything that had to do with the soul, I think I talked about this in the last episode, it was like no go to me. It was absolutely, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want anything outside of my system, right? And it was because there were just parts of me that truly felt victimized, right? Like it wasn't just that I felt victimized, I was, right? And so in that archetypal pattern of a victim, harm had happened to me, right? And I had felt alone and I had felt abandoned and I had felt disconnected from quote unquote grace, right? And it took me a long time to, as I healed the different layers, to start to realize, oh my gosh, I was completely held in grace in these different moments. Things could have totally gone a different direction in so many different instances. And yet somehow, some way, the blow was softened just a little bit, or an idea or an inspiration. There was some type of a lifeline that was coming in those moments where it could have gone completely different. And as I started to understand that, I really began to embrace this archetypal pattern of what Carolyn Mace, for those of you who don't know, I'm certified in Carolyn Mace's archetypal consultants. And so working through her work and learning her work and bringing that into the work that I do with the clients that I work with, I really started to understand the victim within myself. Like the victim in the light is what I like to call one of the heart's guardians. So she says that it's the guardian of our truth and our choice. And I really start to finally get it, that the victim wasn't about taking a poo-poo stance. Oh my gosh, look what happened to me. That's not it. It's also not using our wounds because this happened to me. I deserve this, or I'm entitled to this, or I'm going to use this pain to create power and control over somebody over here. That's not it either. Those are all shadow versions of the victim. The victim in the light opens us to deeply tending to ourselves, turning towards someone's pain and suffering, from turning towards the harm that has been done within our own system or somebody else, and offering care, right? Offering a way to support it, a way to work through it and open to the growth that's on the other side, the medicine within the wound, so that it can be healed, and then also to grow that medicine so that it can be offered to others. And that's when I realized that the victim in the light is really not asking us to explore why this is happening to us. It's asking us to explore what is happening right now and how can I best tend to that? What choices are available to me? And I can only make a choice that's truly going to tend to myself and empower myself, which is the victim in the light, to be victorious, right? Over those moments that are trying to reduce us. I can only access that choice if I'm willing to see truth with a big key, T, capital T, like the different levels of truth, the survival level, the personal level, and the soul level, and honoring each one of those as a real perspective, but allowing myself to see beyond just one perspective and working with the whole, so that I can really make a choice that allows me to step into remembering that there is a choice in every moment that's either going to help create greater balance, greater wholeness, well-being, freedom, and liberation within my system, growth, or there's a choice that I can make that maybe just keeps me neutral, next best choice, or there's a choice that I can make that's going to stifle me more, create more separation, create more dis-ease within the system, and ultimately enslave myself and those around me more to shadow versions of connections, to shadow codependency, to dominance, control, reduction, reducing myself and all the world around me. And so each, that victim in the light really says, hey, it's true. Every choice, from the little minute ones to the big, huge ones, really do matter. They add up, they ripple out in ways you can never see. And how amazing is it if we say, hey, I'm not going to let a past experience, either one that I brought on myself or one that felt like a thumbprint of somebody else's impacting my life, reduce my capacity to pick the choice that's going to bring me the most balance, that's going to bring me the most joy, the most laughter, the most love, the most freedom within my system, even those uncomfortable choices that bring me into some working edges, right? Into holding some boundaries and working with different things, holding myself responsible for things I'd much rather shop out to other people. All of those things are available to me. So we don't have to become fragmented. That's what Maya's inviting us into, right? Is we don't have to become fractured. We don't have to become reduced. We don't have to become burdened to being less than. We can, in fact, like post-traumatic growth says, grow, strengthen our connections to ourself, drain back some of that ocean, and build this beautiful bridge of connection over to accessing our true self. And then that access to our true self is a lifeline that no matter what I find myself on as I'm trying to surf with life's ups and downs, whether I'm standing on top of that surfboard, rocking it out, or I feel like I'm getting tumbled by the waves and just crushed against a rock, I know that there is a lifeline there that's going to help me step towards a choice that's going to bring me greater compassion, that's going to help me realize the immense amount of courage and capacity that I do have within myself, where might have parts of me that think, oh man, there's no way, I can't do this. There's a part of me that's going to say, and yet we can. And let's find the choice, the next best choice that's going to take us one step closer to freedom, right? One step closer to liberation, to love, to courageous choice and living, right? And really allowing ourselves to realize that we have the power within us to either empower ourselves or disempower ourselves. That choice doesn't belong to somebody else in our view. When we were little, we didn't have the luxury of this, right? Some of us might have been able to find that when we were little, or little fighters, little warriors by birth, but some of us truly were under the thumb of the different changes and experiences that happened to us, right? But as an adults now, we have this opportunity to start to say, and now this belongs to me. And how do I want to, no matter what has happened in the past, there is a choice right now in this moment. Even if I've self-abandoned, even if I've been like sayonara choice, I'm not making it and I've seen it right here, right now. I can open to the grace of forgiveness. I can open to the grace of courage, and I can make that choice that's going to bring me closer to inner balance, to well-being, instead of the one that's just going to either keep me neutral. But if that's the best choice, by all means, rock it out. But definitely allowing ourselves to soften our survival grip on that we need to pick the one that just helps us survive. And that usually is the one that brings us into more separation, more disease, and more repression within our own system, right? So another concept that really kind of goes with this is this concept of resilience. And this was another thing that was like starting to come on board in the late 90s, like this idea of like, what is the difference between what has one being really feeling crushed, right? Reduced in their spirit, in their psyche, in their body, in their form, and another being has the exact same experience and somehow they manage to reach this growth or they bounce back, right? What are the factors that gain that bounce back ability that is present in there? And it was even wrote in some journals that somehow post-traumatic growth and resiliency were not linked to each other. And I just kind of always scratched my head at that. And I said, well, it's because they're trying to say that resilience is as soon as a traumatic experience happens, this person over here who bounces back just goes tra la la and they go back to their everyday life, right? And that's resiliency. They don't have something bug them down. They're able to quickly expand and grow. Where they're saying that post-traumatic growth is somebody who was bogged down, didn't bounce back quickly, and then had to crawl their way back up. And I'd like to say, let's not put that discrepancy in there, right? Let's let that go. No matter what the timeline is of when that bounce back comes in, it comes in. That's the resiliency. It can be cultivated, it can be strengthened. And ultimately, the resiliency comes, what I found was really interesting in all these studies, is from them having that being that was able to, quote, bounce back, and the ones that were able to find post traumatic growth. All of them have a common piece, which is that somebody, one being in their world, whether that be a human being or an animal being or another type of being, that they felt a resonance, a connection, a heart to heart, that there was somebody that was one there for them, wasn't judging them, was able to let them be seen, felt, and heard for what their experience was and honoring that as their experience, not trying to force it one way or the other, and ultimately invited them into the same question that Maya Angelou is bringing us into is, yes, this has the potential to change you and to reduce you. It also has the potential to grow you. It also has the potential to strengthen you. It has the potential to bring in what I call courageous softness, compassion, beautiful, open heart to understanding the full breadth of the experience of being in a human form, of being a being on this earth, right? Because trauma is not just human only experiences, right? And so, really inviting us into that idea that, hey, if we can become that person for ourselves, if we can reach out to beautiful soul companions and trusted guides to help us hold that space for us, it's the space that I call as a sacred witness. And I could get way off on a whole nother tangent right here about this. In fact, I did a whole season on connecting with joy. That's my membership podcast area that I have within my beautiful community. And the season 3 was all about embodying the sacred witness within, right? And that is the energy, that ability to say, you are still whole, you are still beautiful. You have permission to not let this like take a thumb and push you down or break you or separate you. You have permission to remain whole and to remember that this beautiful wholeness is within you. And if that person is there or that being, because it doesn't have to be a human, in my case, it was a horse, right? And so, and then I've had other humans, definitely, by all means, I'm not saying no to humans being part of that. But in the beginning, I would not touch a human with a 10-foot pole. I didn't trust them, but I would trust an animal being, right? And so, whatever that being is, that's a huge part in helping us remember our wholeness of who we truly be. So, again, one of those main mantras that this embarks onto us is switching gears from what happened to me, and this is why, da 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 da, I can't, to switching gears to, okay, that was in the past. Those were the bells that were rung. Now, picking up from, again, these shake hands with each other from week to week from episode 7, what bells want to be rung right now? How can I ask this question of what is happening for me right now and what choice would bring me greater balance, freedom, willingness to be with myself, my big, beautiful, amazing self, and to grow into that, even if I've had moments that feel to reduce me or separate me, which are very real in the past. How can I now start to bridge that gap and connect back into my true self? So, this is where, when we accept this beautiful truth that Maya is inviting to us, we begin to truly unbridle our life, right? Unbridled change comes into our life. We start to ask the question, well, that's curious. What is happening right now? And what choices are available to right now? If I release this shadow blame that's in me, if I release this idea that I can never find my way back to self, whatever that self is, if I release that I am stuck in inner shame for a choice that I made in the past, if I open to the grace of forgiveness, if I put down the need to feel a protective safety mechanism of control or power or harming and victimizing myself based on past pains and wounds, what could be possible? What is possible right now in this moment if I release that? And so that's what we're going to do with this week's practices as we dive into exploring Maya's quote, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. So let's begin with our 4-body check-in. Just take a deep breath in and out and really kind of wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. And let yourself start to think and feel into your physical body. Just with this idea, I'm going to acknowledge that the past has impacted me. I'm going to acknowledge that even in moments, it probably has reduced me, but it doesn't have to stay that way. And certainly future ones to come definitely don't even have to go that way to begin with, right? But how can we begin to start to work past that? Feel into your body and just see how it feels towards this invitation. What sensations, somatic sensations, mean felt sensations in your body, do you feel coming forward to you with this conversation, this willingness to this week work on identifying, embracing where this is being cut off, and then embracing that we can grow, we can have freedom of choice, we can have greater well-being within ourselves, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Where is it saying yes to that? And where might there be a shaky feeling, a nervousness, almost like a numb area, a separation? Just kind of write those down. And try really hard right now at this stage not to get too lost in the story of, oh, that's always my shoulder. It just always feels this way because when I was 2, I got hit by a bike, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Let go of what you think that sensation is telling you and just let it be there. Let it start to dialogue with you current time. And now open up to that mental being. What parts of you, I see these as little bobbleheads coming forward, what protective mechanisms might be present that might have real hidden attachments, excuse me, and beliefs of what they might allow you to embrace, to reach for, and what parts of your past are they holding on to, lugging around in a backpack, making you drag with you in every thing you go into. and the little like shadow attachments, thoughts, feelings, beliefs that are kind of on your shoulder saying, oh, you can't make that choice because dot, 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 dot. Just notice what those are. Okay, and now open up to the beautiful heart center, asking the mental being and those parts that we found to kind of soften and move to the edges, opening up that beautiful heart energy. What would your heart like you to see, sense, feel, hear, know, so that we can release the weight, the repression that has happened within this system? So that we can open up to remembering that we have more choice in here, more freedom. A past choice does not dictate our current or future choice, right? And so, what would like to be seen? And this is, again, where sometimes you meet those younger wounded parts. Sometimes you meet the parts that have experienced that thumbprint. And so, whatever way is optimal for you to working with them, you can just give them a nod, maybe write them down. This is, again, where I'll encourage you to work with a practitioner, a coach, a mental health therapist, your professional of choice, if this is too big to do. And I never get the initials right. To do it yourself, so I think it's DIY. I always want to reverse the letters. Oh, dyslexia, you gotta love it. In there. Now opening up to the support, the beautiful sacred witness energy that is within you. What is of your soul being? What whispers and nudges, what compassionate questions does your soul want you to really lean into this week so that you can liberate yourself and gather greater and greater resilience and ability to walk with the soul medicines of grace, of accepting that support can be there seen and unseen, allowing courage, the courage of your heart to help tend to those parts of your mind that are like, oh, I don't know, this feels really scary. And then that grace of forgiveness, because to do this, we're going to have to take this backpack off and say, I know that this was then, but this is also now. And I'm not going to sacrifice my present because of the past. And so to do that, we have to walk with forgiveness, both for ourselves and for others, in whatever way feels optimal to you, right? And so the practice I'd like to invite you in this week is really cultivating that greater inner compassion, courage, and freedom to believe in your amazing, beautiful soul self, right? That is always present and always available to you. It cannot be taken away. It cannot be damaged. It is there for you. It is just that ocean that cuts us off from it. And so this week, we're going to try to help drain that ocean and start to build in that lifeline, that bridge, to know that that's there and can connect more to that. So at this time, just inviting you to set that intention, to notice that when I am allowing those stories of the past to those experiences, those old habits and ways of being, where I am allowing them to start to separate me, to abandon me from my own self, from my knowing my self-worth, and then also then getting me to back off from what choices I could be making in that moment. I want my intention to be aware for that so that it can guide my attention to those moments when a fractured part of me is separating me and cutting me off from remembering my wholeness, from believing in myself and my ability to go beyond just survival mode, right? And into thriving, and to courageously connecting with my life and the choices that want to be present and the connections that want to be in that life. And then therefore allowing me to see where I am letting my past, the weight of that backpack of my past, rob me of what current choices and opportunities, connections, growth can be available to me right now in this moment. So when that happens, help me pause, soften, and look inward in those moments and have awareness that can illuminate those parts of me that are lost in those protective stories. Help my attention flow back to opening up that heart center and engaging with inner compassion, courage, acceptance that will help me tend to those wounded parts, right? That will help me release myself, like pull those blinders off. In client work, I call them trauma goggles. Like help me take those trauma goggles off, break the protective spell that they have with me of how I hear, how I see, how I smell, how I speak, how I talk, how I let others talk. All the spells that go with this, help me break them so that I can access my healing superpower, which is greater freedom to continue to choose to grow and expand and engage my life from my soul, right? Asking what is happening right now and how can I best meet that choice? Help me listen, help me open, and then help me have the courage to match that inner guidance and to move forward. So this is my practice for this coming week, and I hope you join me in this and see what comes up with you. Feel free to share in the comments below what's coming up for you this week. What different areas of you were you able to see and reclaim and remember? What parts of you that you didn't even know were there because of that ocean? Maybe start to feel that inspiration, that siren's call of your own beautiful self calling you to reclaim this, to shake off those those restraints in your system and have that freedom to flow with yourself, your life, and the choices that were in things. Answering the question, if I didn't feel reduced by this past experience that's cutting me off from my true self right now, what choice would I be willing to make and to run with, right? To unbridle and just like let it ride throughout the week. And just notice what choices then that because of this practice might have slipped past you. And because you have this intention and your attention is flowing, you are co-creating, you are helping to manifest, courageously connecting with your true life. I hope this practice is helpful, offering you light, love, and joy on your journey. This has been Michelle Holling-Brooks. Bye.
Thank you again for joining me in this episode of Soulful Practices. I'm honored to be a guide for you on your spiritual and wellness journey. Your commitment to becoming soul-led within your life is a gift to both yourself and to every being. Together, as we become more aligned with our true self, we truly do create those ripples of light, of love, of joy that goes out to all beings and empowers us all. So please share what parts of this practice spoke to you. Share with us your ahas or how this practice is working with you throughout the week as you go throughout your daily life. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you can stay up to date with the next soulful practice and pocket teacher that wants to help you create that courageous connection to your soul-led life. If you feel called to share this podcast with your friends and family or to write a review, please do so, because it will help increase that beautiful circle of soul-led companions throughout this world. Together, we can create a beautiful, soulful conversation, connections with others, and help each other on our journey. Like Ram Dass says, we are all just walking each other home. Again, this is your host, Michelle Holling-Brooks. Until we meet again in the next Soulful Practice episode, offering you a blessing of light, of love, of joy on your journey.